Dear Vimerian, hello. On behalf of Team 1, Track 1, I would like to welcome you to Problem-Based Learning, our first ML web sessions. I'm Dr. Ali Musa, lecturer of anatomy in Giza University. First, let's start. What is PBL? PBL is a problem-based learning. It's a learning method based on the principle of using the problem as a starting point for acquisition and integration of a new knowledge. Notice, I'm using the problem not to solve the problem, but to learn the students to solve a future problem. We use the problem as a starting point to give the students the skills to solve a further problem. We are mainly here student-centered. We are focusing on the student, not the problem. Again, the main idea of BBL to be a student-centered. I'm focusing on the student skills, how to solve future problem, not to solve this session problem or the PBL session problem. So let's start with the history of problem-based learning. It started early in 1950s in a Canadian university, McClure. It started as a medical school technique. And for your surprise, it's not only used in medical schools, it's used in other schools or other fields, as long as they are trying to evaluate a real life problem. But it started in the medical school in Canada. It started as some of the medical students, they have a problem in understanding situations or the application of this situation on the patient. So they developed the technique, which started to develop more and more by the 60s and 70s. The BBL as a teaching method usually plays on the curiosity of the student. It triggers the students to acquire the skill of solving problem. It uses the problem itself, not a target to solve, but as a mean, as a trigger to stimulate the learner to acquire more skills about how to gain knowledge or how to think critically. This is a list of examples of triggers that has been used in the medical field, like paper-based clinical scenarios, photographs, video, experimental laboratory data, scientific paper, or a real stimulated patient. And this is the most common type that has been used through the PBL session in the medical field. Again, we use this problems or these materials as a trigger for the student to acquire the skill of critical thinking. Some of the cornerstones of problem-based learning. We usually have the session in a small group learning, small number of students. We use a patient-based cases, real life situation again, and we are focusing on a certain learning objective, and will be over 1 or 2 weeks, not oriented by one session, and the faculty will be a facilitator. The faculty is not spoon feeding the student. He is acting as a facilitator, as we will elaborate and clarify in the next sessions, inshallah. He facilitates the process. He helps the students to acquire the skill, not to guide them or spoon feed them. Jumping to the principles of problem-based learning. The problem-based learning use everyday problem. It must be realistic. The learning material is more relevant and when it's applicable on the real life. And it's collaborative. It stimulates the team work for the students or the learner to acquire the knowledge together and to apply the knowledge together. And of course, it's constructive. It's focusing on the skills for the students. They acquire their own knowledge, they develop their own skills. And it is self-directed, as the tutor will help and facilitate. The main force here will be the student themselves. And as any learning method or teaching method, it has a pro and cons. Let's start with the pro. The TPBL will apply a real world problem. So it's be more realistic than the theoretical scenarios that the students could not imagine quite well. It's covering multiple branches, multidisciplinary, as we can cover in the main case physiology, anatomy, cardiology, and just in the same case. So the students will learn to connect the different fields together and use them in one scenario. Also, it attracts the student to engage more, as it is, as they say, the curiosity kills the cat. He becomes so curious to figure out what's hidden, what is the solution for this problem. And during this journey, he will acquire the skill of critical thinking. Also, it teaches the students how to perform in a teamwork. Teamwork is a very crucial nowadays in the field, and it helps the students to learn how to gain the knowledge, how to search and gain those knowledge. Also, the cons will be existing طبعا سنة الحياة, as it is mainly depending on a well-trained tutor. No one can successfully conduct BBL unless he has a special training to guide the session quite well. And also, it will be more time consuming, and some of the students may get lost in the journey and not to get engaged. And also, it is the duty of the tutor to engage them more. And we will discuss in the next session in details the role of the tutor and the role of the student, inshallah. We all know the traditional learning. We all know how it works. We start to tell the patient what we need to know. Then they memorize it. Then we will give them a problem to solve it according to the lecture we have given. The situation is reversed in BBL a little bit. We start with the problem. Then the student identify what we need to know. Then they learn and apply to the problem. And to summarize, this is a quick comparison between the traditional method and the problem-based learning methods. Most of the authors tend to put the problem-based learning in the active learning zone, while the traditional method in the passive learning zone. And as you all know, we are trying to move to the active learning zone to make the student more active learners. What about the first week assignment? Here it comes. Extract three challenges in applying problem-based learning in your institute. Please share with us your reflection about BBL and what is the obstacles you are facing in applying BBL in your institute, or if you are having the BBL already in your institute and you are using it, share with us the pro and cons and what's you have faced. Share with us your experience in the reflection, and meet you in the next week. Thank you so much.